Hello everybody! Yet again, my name is Katie and you are watching the OCD Illustrated channel. In this video, we're continuing to talk about exposure and response prevention. Specifically, I'm talking about what happens when you wait exposure tasks out. And what happens is called habituation. And it is the whole purpose of exposure and response prevention. Now, habituation is a pretty big fancy word, and all it really means is getting used to something without the stimulus or the something you're getting used to really changing. It's like when you get into a body of water and at first feel cold, and after a few minutes you don't feel cold anymore, even though the water temperature hasn't changed. Or when you walk into a room with a bad smell, or I guess a good smell, and for the first couple minutes it's overpowering, and after that you don't notice it anymore. The smell molecules are still in the air, your brain's just not deciding that they're important. So to explain habituation, I'm going to make a chart, and I ask that you just bear with me. There's going to be a lot of little pieces, but at the end, hopefully it will be clear how habituation works. So I've drawn the axes of my chart, and on the vertical one, I put the SUD scale. So at the bottom of that axis is low anxiety. And at the top is high anxiety, and the middle is somewhere in the middle. On the bottom axis, the horizontal one, I've written time. If the orange dot is the moment that you start an exposure task, as you travel along that x-axis, that is the time coming out from the task. So right near the orange dot might be like 5 minutes, and far away from it might be 30 minutes. The first time you do an exposure task is called trial 1. As you can see, I've drawn, your distress is going to spike probably a few minutes after you start the task, and then it'll start coming down. And I didn't have enough space to continue the arrow, but it just continues going down until you're back to 0, or back to your baseline, feeling good. And you're going to keep repeating the trials. So maybe by trial 5, as you can see, the peak isn't going to be as high, and it's not going to take as long for you to start feeling better. Move forward a few trials more, and you can see that the level of distress at the peak distress is maybe about half, and it's taking half as long to return to normal. And this process keeps happening until you reach a point where the distress is barely peaking at all, and it doesn't take any time to return to normal because you're just feeling normal the whole time. So, habituation is what we call this process of doing a task repeatedly and having the discomfort go away. We can divide habituation into 2 types. Within trial habituation, which is the process of going from high distress to low distress during a single exposure task. So in our chart, you want to look at any of the individual colored lines as the peak and then diagonal going down. And then there is between trial habituation, which is the decrease in peak distress and the decrease in the time it takes to return to baseline across repetitions of exposures. So you're looking at the difference between each of the lines on the chart, that the point is getting lower, and that like if it's a little mountain, is getting smaller. Quick review, habituation is the process of getting used to something. And in exposure and response prevention, when you're doing exposure tasks, there's within trial habituation, when you're sitting and waiting for distress to go down. And then between trial habituation, which is the change in stress levels as you repeat exposures multiple times. Thanks for watching, and I hope you join me for future videos.